Okay, let's get started. Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining our API Management Community webcast. Today our topic is going to be the CA API Management OAuth Toolkit and its integration with IFTTT. My name is Melanie Giuliani. I'm the Community Manager for the API Management Community. Before we get started with today's section, I just wanted to let you know that if you're using the WebEx audio today to listen, you can use the Q&A box in the right-hand corner of your screen to ask any questions. If you don't see the Q&A box maximized, you can click that blue box in the top right corner of your WebEx screen, and that'll maximize the box. You can type any questions you have into there, and then we'll go ahead and get to them at the end of the session today. Also, at the end of the session, we'll be opening it up for audio questions. So if you're dialed in over the phone, you can ask any verbal questions you have at that point. I'll let you know at the end of the session how to unmute your line so you can chime in and ask questions then. Today on the phone we have Sascha Preibisch. He is the Principal Software Architect for the APIM product. He's going to be taking you through a presentation as well as a short demo today. So I'm going to hand the call over to him at this point. Sascha, whenever you're ready, you can take it away.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. So the idea is that I'll show a short presentation, and then I will go into the IFT platform and into our policy manager, and I have built a little fake banking website that we will use for this tutorial. And I'm going to start off with a short presentation to get everyone on the same page. So, this is for informational purposes. Of course, it's a tutorial or a demo. My name is Sascha Preibisch. I'm Principal Software Architect here at the CA in Vancouver. I've worked a lot with our OAuth implementation, our OpenID Connect, and our mobile single sign-on solution. And today, this tutorial will not just use an application on the platform IFT, but we will build one, or I'll show you how to build it, where you are able to leverage the OTK and its APIs. So
hey,
if
Sascha?
Yes?
Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah?
If you're sharing your screen, we can't see it.
Oh. Damn it. This modern stuff. 1 second. Okay.
Okay, we can see it now.
Okay. Yes, so we will look at the IFT platform and into OTK, and I will show you how you can tie those two together. Just very short, what is a CA API OAuth Toolkit? It's an OAuth server, it's OpenID Connect certified, and it sits on top of a CA API gateway. So this combination allows you to expose many types of APIs, and in this case we will use OAuth protected APIs. What is IFT? IFT is a SaaS platform, and it allows anyone to connect and build an app with the pattern if this then that. And when we'll get to this page, I'll show you examples that I'm using myself just to give you an idea how that works. So for any end user, it's free. If you want to build your own application, what we are doing today, you will have to pay a fee for that. During development, it's free, but to publish it, you will have to pay for that. And a little disclaimer, we have got no relationship whatsoever. We've chosen IFT as an example because customers have asked us, and I wanted to try it out myself anyways. On that note, so I didn't know how IFT works beforehand, and it took me a day to read through it to figure out how it works, and after 2 days I've got my first demo working. So I would like to encourage anyone to just give it a try. It's really not difficult once you've figured out how everything fits together. So today I came up, or for today I came up with a little example, a bank, the CA OTK tutorial bank, which provides online banking and wants to enhance the customer usability and enhance the usage of this bank account, make it more convenient for their customers to use it and to get information about it. So we are simulating a little bank. The bank has a few APIs to do online banking, and the bank is going to implement an IFT API interface and create services on the gateway that work together with the IFT platform. And the application I've called Account Monitor, and the idea is that any user could go to this platform, search for this bank's application, and could implement something like, if my account with account number XYZ changed with more than $200, then I would like to get an email or I would like to get a notification. And this is what I did. And this is what you are going to see. And it works really nicely. So this is what the bank has got today. It's got a web server, it's got a gateway, and it's protecting access to bank accounts, and it has an online banking web page. And it knows about the IFT platform, but now they want to implement this account monitor, and they've decided to use this IFT platform. And what they'll have to do is, and what I'll show you is, implement these red components. So first of all, create an account on IFT, and in this case, implement a so-called trigger and a so-called action. And this trigger is called Account Monitor, which is a little agent, so to say, on IFT, which is calling an API on the bank's API gateway in order to retrieve a list of any changes that happen to this specific account and that are above the threshold amount that the user typed in. And the account manager is a so-called action which will not ask the API gateway to change something, but ask the API gateway if something has changed, but it will change the API gateway. And I will show you how this is being done. One nice thing is if you implement one app and an action, customers can still use other actions that are already available. Like in this case, there are many applications that do things like, if the temperature is rising, then send me an email, and this send me an email is already available, and you can just easily use it for your use case. So we will configure the IFT platform, we will configure OTK, and we will see how those two work together. These are links, and I'll get back to these ones at the end. So we'll start off with IFT. If you haven't used it, this is how it looks like. You log into this platform, and you get these little boxes, and each one represents a application. And I have created a few, my applets. And what I did, for example, just to give an idea what this tool does is, I've got a camera from Arlo, and you can do things like, if Arlo detects motion, then turn on my front door. And front door in this case is my Philips Hue light bulb, or lighting bulb, API-based light system. And these are connected now, and whenever my camera detects motion, it will turn on the light. And this is the type of application that you can build on your own. So if we go back to my applets, we can see two cases here. One is, if account changed, then send me an email. And the other one is, if account changed, then manage account. And we will look into both of those. And before we do that, I want to show you my fancy banking app. So this is my banking app. And if I click here, I'm going to log in. And it's an OAuth application. So I clicked login, and I got redirected to the authorization server of CAOTK Tutorial Bank. I'm logging in. I will get to my consent screen, IFT Fake Bank app, and this is the scope, banking OpenID profile. I hit grant, And my application gets back and says, welcome admin, which was my username. Please choose from the left menu. So I choose this account management icon, and I get to my accounts, and I can see transactions for different account numbers. Well, more or less different, almost different. And the date, and if it was a deposit or a withdrawal, and then the amount. So now, in IFT, what we want to do is build an application that monitors a specific account and notifies me if it has changed for a certain amount. So this is the IFT platform, and if you want to start developing, the first thing you'll do is you'll click on the very low button, IFT platform. And in IFT platform, you've got a different view, and what you can do is create services, you can specify your APIs, and you can build these applets. And you are also able to view insights on how your application has been used. So what I did was I started off with the service, and in service you have to specify a few general pieces of information, like your service name, little description, a category, official website. So this website will be the one where you can download artifacts of this tutorial, and you can use those to get started a little faster. Here's my email address and a service ID. And this is all you have to do on this first page. And the next thing is you'll configure stuff like branding. You can call action button. You can specify what happens if someone clicks a button on this tool. And this is how it works. And here in tools, when you're done with everything, you can hit this export service button, and you will get a Swagger file, which you can then use for your API documentation or for testing tools like SOAP UI, or you can import it into the CA portal. So the next thing, and this is more important, APIs. So in APIs, it starts off with the IFT API URL, which is like the basic path to your server. You'll see this cryptic host name. This is a tool that IFT recommands, and it allows you, it's like a proxy, it allows you to bridge between the online IFT platform and your development environment, which may be in your local network. So there's an agent running on my computer, and through this host name, IFT and my gateway, my Docker-based gateway running on my MacBook can communicate. Here's a service key. This is the one that you shouldn't show to anyone. So for this tutorial, I'm going to show it, and then afterwards, it's going to be blown away anyways. So authentication, and you can build APIs that do not require any type of authentication. But in our case, we will use OAuth 2 access token and refresh token. And what you'll have to do is specify the OAuth credentials. So here's a client ID, and usually you would have to register an application in OTK first, but OTK allows you to override a suggested client ID and client secret that are shown on the registration page. So we can just use a random value here for the client ID and the secret, and then specify the authorization URL. So this is the authorization endpoint of my OTK running on my server. And the same for the token endpoint. And this redirect URI down here is the one where OTK will send the authorization code to. And this is given by IFT, by the platform. And then you can create a test account. I called him Mr. IFT, and Mr. IFT with his fancy password. And here are a few notes. So the idea is that IFT support people, for example, if they want to log into your system, they can use these credentials, and then you can leave a little note here. So this is the first thing you'll have to do. And after that, you have to decide what you want to build, either triggers or actions, or both. So let's start off with a trigger. So I've created a few. Create a new thing was the very first one where I had no idea. The second one was game is over, and I wanted to run this tutorial showing off how Germany won against Mexico in the World Cup, but that didn't happen. So I'm not using this example, and therefore I've started off with the account monitor. And a trigger will call a endpoint on your gateway, and your gateway has to look up values that have changed over the time, like the account, right? So this trigger will call an API. It will tell the server, look for this account number, look if any transaction has exceeded the given amount, and then return a list of those transactions. And how this is being done, I'll show you here. So you'll give it a name, a little description, and after you type in the name, this endpoint will be generated, and you can override this part. So what you'll have to do is, for each trigger that you implement, you will have to implement an API on the gateway. And in this case, it is this one here, account monitor. And let me just show it to you. If we go to the policy manager, here in my IFT folder, there are IFT services, and right here is my account monitor API. You can see it's exactly this API here, right? So it's the prefix and the actual path, and this is the one that matches this trigger that we just looked at. So that's important. And now, what took me a while to understand is there are trigger fields, and then if you look further down, there are so-called ingredients. So what happens is trigger fields will contain information like which account number is someone looking for, which amount is someone looking for. And if you modify it here, you can see again, you just specify a name, a little text, and then this key name, and this is a so-called trigger field, and this will be included when IFT is sending a message to your API. It's part of a JSON payload, and we can have a look at it later. Then you can specify the type of input, and you can even implement validations. And the same is for amount. In my case, I want to know what the amount is, the amount as of which the monitor becomes active. And this is how you add trigger fields. So they are being sent to your gateway, and this trigger creates a response, and this response includes so-called ingredients. So in this case, the plan is from this trigger to send out a message back to the client, including what type of transaction was it, withdrawal or deposit, what was the amount, and what's the ID of the transaction. And these ingredients can then be extracted and used for the next task, and I will show you that in a second. So you'll have to decide what is going into your system and what is getting out of your system. And once you figure that out, you can implement your APIs. So let's check. So those were triggers, and I also implemented an action. And you can see my update game plan we will not use, but I've got an action called account manager. And what this will do is, it's got a name, little description, and it's got its own API again. Same thing as before. You can see it here. Here's my account management. So it's very isolated from each other, and it's actions, it's not a trigger, and this is the endpoint. So this guy will include so-called action fields. And in this case, it is sending this action field to your gateway again, and the assumption is this input field will change the state of something on your gateway. And in this case, it's going to be the online account, which I will show you in a few seconds. So the incoming field is which account, because this action needs to tell the service, okay, which account is going to be used. So, same thing, what type, you can create a drop list, it's very easy to use. So now that you've specified your triggers and your actions, you will have to implement them on the gateway. And when you're done with that, there's a testing tool. So this testing tool will run requests against your system with prepared example messages, and this web page will check if everything is going to be green. So since I've implemented the server-side already, which I'm going to show you in a second, let's run these tests. So I hit begin test, and then one after another will become green. And if everything is green, everything's fine. Let's see. Triggers, account monitor, come on. So sometimes this platform fails just for a second or just for one request or so. And you see this time it's working. And it may be my proxy, I'm not so sure. So everything's green. This is just a plain API call, and this guy will take a user through an authorization code flow. So if your users decide to use your application, they will have to grant this application first. And this will, it's going to be a full authorization code flow. So if I hit begin text test, it's taking me to my authorization page. I log in. And it's the IFT platform asking for scope IFT. This is the only scope that IFT is asking for. I say grant, and I get back to my IFT platform. So in this case, this testing tool is an OAuth client of the OTK. So now we've seen everything is green. What I would like to recommend is when you have configured your triggers and your actions, what I did is to create a SoapUI test suite. So this is also hitting endpoints. I haven't implemented all of them, but quite a few. And this allows you to check your APIs before you use the IFT platform. This is more efficient. So if I hit run, it's hitting all my endpoints, and the result is the one that it would be expected by IFT. So here this test endpoint, for example, it has examples of your triggers and of your actions, and the IFT platform is sending the same type of request and it's expecting the same result. So you can go back and forth and enhance your implementation first, then go test with IFT, and when your SoapUI tests are green and the IFT platform tests are green, then you are good to go. And this test suite will also be available for you for download. So now, in the gateway, there are a few endpoints that you will have to implement anyways, no matter what you do. And in this folder structure, which you will also get as a bundle, and you can install it on your gateway, I've decided to name one folder IFT services. Those are the ones that we are going to implement ourselves. IFT system, those are the ones that are more or less dictated by IFT. You have to have those. And services, this is my online banking app. So if we look into system, you will have to implement a status API. This is like a health check, executed from time to time by IFT. And it is very simple. It just returns 200. And of course, it should have a check if my services actually work, but I just wanted to get it going for this tutorial. You would have to implement it in such a way that it reflects the current state. Another one is this test setup. This is the one we've just called. And if you look into this implementation, you will see, sorry here. So for once, it is pretty straightforward, and let me show you something here. You may see that this is the response of the test endpoint, and it has an access token in here. So IFT expects a valid access token, which can be used on protected APIs. So this has to be in your response. And instead of calling the authorization server, what I simply did, since OTK is on the same gateway, as you may see here in this folder in the lower left corner, I simply created an access token, and then I persisted it with values that I've stored in cluster-wide properties. And this is how I get a valid access token, and you can do the same thing. So this test platform will only require, or this test API requires one value, and it is passing in a header, and this header is the IFT service key. This is the one that you have received and which we have seen earlier, and the platform will pass in this key, and I'm comparing it with what I have configured in my cluster-wide property. And this is the only credential here, and once this is successful, you have to return these examples that we've seen. You see here, Germany, Mexico 3.0. This didn't work out. And this is what is being returned. Okay, and the last one, IFT requires a user info endpoint which does not match the user info format of the OpenID Connect platform or specification. Therefore, I re-implemented this API, but you can see it's pretty straightforward. Once it's accepting GET only, it is requiring a access token granted for IFT for this platform, and then you could reuse this assertion to look up attributes from the user from your LDAP, and this is an assertion in OTK which you can very easily extend. So in your implementation, you can just search for this input value, and if you get into this branch, you know what type of information you want to return, because you will know which endpoint it is requested by. And then you'll have the response, very simple, name and an ID, and this is it. And this is good enough for the platform as the user info endpoint. Very straightforward, very simple. Okay, so now these are the actual implementations that you have to work on. So we've got this trigger, account monitor, and if we look at it, the request will optionally include, so let's start here. It is documented to be used with POST. Same thing, access token granted for scope, IFT. And the incoming request may include a limit value, and you have to respect this. So this limit will be not more than 50, and you can check if it's greater than or equal to 0, or less or equal than 50, and then you can accept this value. So you have to search for it. This is always the same, so you could take this as a pattern. And afterwards, you'll have to check if your expected trigger fields are included in this request, and those are the ones that we have specified earlier. In this case, it's the account number and the amount. This is a very simple check that I've implemented here. And once you've done that, you can continue, and here we'll generate IDs. So what IFT, this platform, is doing, it's checking responses, and if it has seen an ID beforehand, it's an indicator I don't have to send out an email, for example. If it's a new ID, then it will have to take some action. In this case, for this demo, I'm creating a new IDs all the time, just to get the system going. So again, you'll have to. This is on line 7. We search for the limit, and here we are searching for it. If it's empty, if it's 0, then we return nothing. If it's 1, then we return just one element. And if it is not 0 or 1 in this case, then we'll return a list. So you will certainly have to have a logic where you retrieve values from a database or other sources and build this dynamically, right? I just hard-coded 0, 1, and unlimited because this is what the test framework is checking for, and I wanted to get this going. And in the end, we'll return the response, very fixed format. The root element or the root key is key, and then the contents items. And as I said earlier, trigger fields are coming into your message and ingredients are being returned. So we've specified the type as an ingredient, which contains the value deposit in this case, the amount, and then a transaction ID. And I simply created this timestamp thingy. And again, only to make sure that we get some stuff going, which I will start in a minute. So, and this would be a trigger. It checks your system, has anything changed, and if so, you'll return a list of those values. Now, the action one is receiving values, and the expectation is that you will update your system. The start of this API is the same again. We'll check for method, for access token. We'll check for so-called action fields. And since we've earlier configured the count as an input field, this is what we are extracting here. And in this case, here you would now have to implement logic that handles your account number and does something useful. In our case, we want to update, we are creating a so-called, what I called a session here, and it contains a few values like at which URL did I create the session, what was the username of the user whose session this is right now, and an account information. And my idea was that I wanted to enhance the online banking experience. So this guy is creating a local session, and this could be an update in the database or whatever you wish. And these actions always have to return a response like this, an ID, which is like the ID that modified something in your system, and you should have a URL which you can pass back, and applications may use this to call those APIs or this one API. So this is all you have to do. For each trigger one endpoint, for each action one endpoint, you have to know what the incoming fields are, you have to know what the outgoing ingredients are. And once you figure that out, it is pretty straightforward to implement this stuff. For OTK, you may ask what do we have to modify in OTK. So OTK can left as it is. There's nothing, hardly anything special required. There's just one little thing here. So the if platform requires refresh token that after they have been used and after a new one has been issued, they need to be able to reuse the old one for some amount of time. And I resolved this issue in OTK by simply saying reuse refresh token. So what this does is, if a client uses a refresh token, the gateway will, or OTK will issue a new one, but the refresh token's value will stay the same. So a new one is issued, but for the client it looks like it's the old one since it's the same value. This is the little trick that I used. What I also did was I've changed the fancy authorization website to implement OTK tutorial bank, and this is done by just one variable. If you go into this customizable policy the only thing is that I did was I've changed this content of this page here to display a new name, and this is all I had to do. And you can certainly modify this page to your needs or retrieve the content from a different API however you want. And the next thing I did was, OTK by default allows only one OAuth session per client, but it happened due to some, I'm not pretty sure yet how that happened, but there's some concurrency with IFT, and therefore I had to tell OTK accept up to 2 sessions for this client, and this works out fine. And this way you've always got a running refresh token. So this is practically all we had to do, and I'm going to show you how the system works now. So I'm going to log out of my website, but you can see when I logged in, let's do that again. I got to this initial page where it said choose a task from the left side, and I had to choose account management. And we want to make this a little more convenient now. So let me go back to my apps. My applets. So I'm going to turn on this one first, because this has a little more action to it. This is the one that says, if an account changed, send me an email. And the nice thing is, you can use, or a user can use your trigger. If the account changed, then send me an email to Sascha Preibisch. And what you can do here is, this part, you can see the CA logo, was built by me, and it's combined with the email. And this is an existing application. And then when I said earlier that there are ingredients being returned from triggers, those ingredients can be used as an input to your email, like in this case. The type was, so I specify the subject and I'll specify the body. And if you hit ingredients, these are the ingredients that are produced by your trigger. So you can, it's really convenient to build this stuff. So I've created this message. The type was type with an amount, find the transaction ID with ID so-and-so. I hit save, and now this applet will usually run every hour or so, but I want to show you something. So this is my IFT folder and my email program. It's empty, and if I now start to check, the gateway's trigger endpoint is being called. Let me show this in the audit viewer. So here, you can see the account monitor has been called a few times, and this should have caused an email to be sent. Yeah, you can see it here. So the trigger, the API call to your gateway, returned a list of updated values, and here's my customized message. And this was very easy, right, for the user. You implemented this trigger, and the action taken is whatever a customer or a user wants. So since my system is returning changes all the time, I would get emails all day long, and I'm going to turn this off again. So the other one that I've built for this tutorial was where we are using a trigger and our own action. And if we go back here, first I'm saying again, what's the account number, which is the amount, and then you can see CA account manager, and I'm telling this guy which account do I want to manage. So my trigger does not contain the ingredient account, but otherwise I could just select it here and I wouldn't have to retype it manually. This would be an enhancement that could be implemented. So if I hit save now and I say execute, we can go back to Policy Manager and we can see the account monitor has been executed, but also our management API. And if we look at the requests, we can see there are these action fields, which account, and this fixed response that I've shared with you, and the account monitor received trigger fields, account number, amount, and it returned this list of ingredients, type, amount, ID. So now the action taken was account management, and if we go back to our online banking page now, and if we log in, we will see that our user is getting the list of transactions for the account that he monitored right away, right? So this is, of course, a simple example, but it should give you an idea that you can enhance the usability for your customers of any system very easily by doing these little things. So I don't have to choose this account management tool now, and since this is the account that I've monitored, it's the bank API assumes, okay, this is the one that our users would like to see first. And in my case, I've built it so that if there hasn't been any update within the last 5 minutes, then there would be nothing displayed, but in this case, I would show this page. And I believe this is my demo. So you will get these policies that are in this IFT folder. You will get the SOAP UI project, and I've worked on a README file for the GitHub repository, which I'm updating now since Germany lost, and I'm adjusting it to the new example or tutorial. And yeah, that is my demo. I hope it gave you an idea on how to combine IFT and OTK. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. Oh no, I'm not going to stop. I'm going to pull up my PowerPoint because I wanted to show you these links. So this is the last, I guess. So a link to our gateway, a link to the IFT platform, blocks. We've got 2 main blocks for our APIM unit. One is the one I maintain, mainly about OAuth-related topics. The other one is Viktor Kazakov's, our architect's blog, and he has got really good blogs about the future of the gateway in Docker-based environments and on tools that he's working on and that we are working on in order to make policy development easier. We've got our GitHub repository where you can download our mobile SDKs and other content, and our tutorial that I'm showing right now, it's going to be in the same area in the tutorial section, and it's going to be called CA APIM OTK and IFT, and it should be there later this afternoon or tomorrow morning, and then you can try out all of this stuff yourself. That's it with my presentation.
Okay, thank you, Sascha. So now is the time we're going to open it up for questions. If you have any questions, you can feel free to go ahead and put them in the Q&A box at this time. The Q&A box will be found in the right-hand panel of your WebEx screen, or if you'd like to maximize it and you don't see it, you can click the blue box with the question mark in it at the top right of the WebEx screen.
Okay.
Also, at this time, we will open up the phone line for questions. If you have any questions you'd like to ask over the phone, you can click #6 on your telephone keypad, and that will unmute your line, and you can chime in. We do have, we had one question in that was already answered by Bill. We have another question in. Do you have CA API Gateway available for us to play? I'm guessing that is referring to either a trial version or a try to buy.
Yes. Yes, and we do have those. And if you follow the blogs of, or one solution is to follow this blog of Viktor, and he's referencing it, and he's pointing out where you can get all the stuff, where you can combine the gateway with the new policy development tools, so that you should get going very easy. And
so what link is that, Sascha?
The one to the blog, which is at the communities page, /blogs/gateway. It's on my slides, so everyone can see that URL. So the next question was, can you please share the deck? Yes, we'll do that.
So absolutely, we're going to be posting the slides, the recording, the slides, and the Q&A transcript to the community later today or early tomorrow, so keep an eye out for that. I will leave a comment in the original event.
The next question, what customization did you do on OTK and how? The only thing that I had to do was to tell OTK to reissue the same value of a refresh token. I customized my authorization page a little bit, and I told OTK that 2 sessions have to be available for this IFT client. And those are customizations, so very little. The IFT platform adheres very well to the OAuth spec, and what I certainly had to do was to register the IFT in OAuth Manager as an OAuth client, just as my OAuth online banking example. And that will be documented, so you can take the same approach, take the same values, and you should be able to try it out very easily yourself. Okay, Sascha had to tell OTK. Yeah, oh yeah. Okay.
Any other questions, guys? While we wait for questions to come in, I'm going to launch a quick poll. If you can let us know what you thought of the topic today, we like to take your feedback and use it when planning out future sessions. We also are requesting any ideas that you guys have for sessions you'd like to see presented to the community. We're going to try to start doing this on a monthly cadence, so any topics that you guys want to see presented out to the community, we'll take those and see if we can get a presenter for them and possibly schedule them out for the future. If you do have any ideas, you can feel free to reach out to me. My email is melanie.giuliani@ca.com, or you can leave a post in the community. I check that space constantly, so if you have any suggestions, put a post out in the community. We will take that and see if we can schedule it out in the coming months. Okay, I'm not seeing any more questions come in, so if there are no questions, I think we'll go ahead and close out for today. If you think of any questions, you can always feel free to put those in the community as well. Head to the API Management community, open up a question, and one of our experts will get a response into you as quickly as possible.
Yes. And you can also, most of you have my email address, shoot me a note, or you can also go to my blog space and ask a question there if you like, and then we'll get questions answered.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much, Sascha, for a great presentation today. Thank you, everyone, so much for joining. And keep an eye on the API management space for upcoming events. As we get more topics, we'll schedule them out and post them there. Thank you, everyone. We hope to see you on a future event or out in the communities. I hope everyone has a great day.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.